Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Mariya. This channel is about spirituality. Please subscribe below so we can be YouTube friends. Why is there so much suffering in the world? If God, the creator of this reality, is so kind and so gracious, why wouldn't God remove the suffering? I know that this existential question has perhaps taken you aback. So many people ask it and don't quite feel like they know the answer. For me, the answer to this question is crystal clear. And so in this video, I'm hoping to share with you why, indeed, is there so much suffering in the world. I subscribe to a belief that the world that we live in is a very precise and mathematical system based on a number of equations. It is, if you will, a simulation. And in this simulation, souls have experiences. We come here to learn, we come here to expand with the expectation of one day ascending, because through growth and development, our light bodies are accumulating light. And when enough accumulation takes place, we can move on to bigger and better things at soul level. We can move on towards unity. When this simulation was first created, and by the way, this version of the simulation that we're experiencing, it's not the first one. There have been many functioning versions of the simulation prior. There will be many after. However, the simulation that we find ourselves in, the matrix, if you will, is a very wise system. It is a system that is based on a lot of empirical learning, and it was created by God and the beings who I would refer to as the architects in order to foster learning. And specifically what they were optimizing for is the speed of learning. Now, in our localized strata, we have one major simulation, one major matrix, if you will, with many different worlds within that one matrix to experience. There are a variety of different souls that live in our local strata. The variety of souls are from, call it, very youthful, and souls that have not really had too many experiences, to souls that have been there and done that. So there is a lot of variety. There is a pretty vast and dramatic range between the caliber of souls that live in our localized strata. And yet we have one simulation and one matrix that everybody goes to learn. Think of it as, instead of multiple institutions, multiple colleges, multiple schools, and multiple kindergartens, everybody just had one big learning facility. A 2-year-old would go to that facility, a 5-year-old would go to that facility, a 20-year-old would go to that facility, and a doctorate student would go to that facility, however, and even the people who are trying to get a second degree, a third degree, a fourth degree, or change their career trajectory, or they're taking night classes at 6 years old, they would still go into the same learning facility. That is kind of what this matrix is. You have all of these souls of all of different calibers, ages, etc., that are all playing the same game. The only way that you could create a game or a learning facility that is equally desirable and helpful to each of these souls is if you build an adaptable system, is if you build a malleable and very flexible system, which is what the simulation is at the end of the day. We started this video with this fundamental question of suffering. Why does God create suffering? The simple answer is, it is not God that creates suffering, but a person experiencing a particular feeling or emotion within the simulation. In other words, God does not optimize the world to have or not have suffering. Suffering is not a quality that is top of mind for God when designing the system. What is top of mind is learning. It is a learning institution first and foremost. Are the right curriculums in place? Are we teaching in a way that can be understood by souls? Is everybody learning as fast as they could possibly be learning? Etc., etc. You see, the only way to build a malleable system, the only way to build a system that caters to all of these souls irrespective of their tenure, shall we say, or age, etc., etc. Although I don't really love the word age, but as it refers to souls, but it is really just the easiest way to explain where we're going. The only way to build this system is to allow every single soul to impact the system. So when the soul descends into the simulation, the core vibration of that soul literally rebuilds their sector of the matrix, their sector of the simulation, because the matrix responds to your vibration. And so if we have a pro come into the simulation is going to adjust the complexity level. If we have a kindergartner come into simulation, the simulation is going to adjust itself to the kindergartner level. That's why we all live in the same world, but really we all live in different worlds because we all are living in our own personalized cells of the matrix, personalized sections of the simulation. So God does not create suffering because God does not create your experiences, your energy does. What God does, though, is enable those experiences to happen so you could learn. It is like saying that whoever created knives created suffering because knives could cut a finger or could murder a person. But that's not really why the knives were created in the first place. Arguably, knives were created, or at least the wide use of that tool, is to make food. You can do whatever you want with that object, with that tool. So in the same way that we cannot blame the knife or the creator of knives for every single morsel of blood that knife spills, we cannot quite blame God for creating suffering. What is suffering in the first place? It is just a response to a stimuli. And by the way, suffering is incredibly personal. 10 people may be going through the same exact experience, and each of these 10 people are going to have a very different set of feelings about that experience, no matter how dire. 10 people may go through the situation of war, or the pain of war, but what they're going to walk out of war with is going to be very different. So suffering is not created by anybody outside of yourself. And therefore, suffering is a choice. It is not something that is intrinsically interwoven into the fabric of existence. It's a choice that you make. You make a choice to suffer. You also make a choice not to suffer. It is up to you. So no, God does not create suffering. God simply creates a playground for us to experience all kinds of things, including suffering. And by the way, I'll tell you this. From the perspective of God, suffering is not a strictly negative phenomenon. And we just went into this danger zone. Why is suffering not strictly negative? Because suffering is a process through which our hearts become tender. Suffering is an alchemical process of transmutation that takes something that is very hard and softens it. And so we often experience suffering in an area of your life where we need softening, when we need more flexibility, when we perhaps need a little bit more surrender to what is. So suffering is a learning tool and a learning mechanism. And certain souls choose to use it over and over and over again to make certain hard spots, soft spots, in the best of ways. God, Source, the architects, the matrix, they are not your enemies. They never have been. They're not creating suffering for the sake of suffering. And trust me, it is not their desire that you suffer. It is their desire that you become so flexible and that through suffering, you crack your heart open and see all the light that you are. And so yes, suffering does lead to enlightenment. Is that an easy way, an easy road? It is not. Is that a fast road? It's not. but it is a road, and it is a very viable path, and therefore a learning tool. It's like a discipline through which you learn. You can learn through mathematics, you can learn through trauma, you can learn through suffering. There is no right or wrong way. And so I think that we need to stop blaming suffering. Suffering is not a scapegoat. And by the way, we're not all even perceiving this sensation equally in our hearts. You can only perceive the suffering to the degree that your heart is open. And on the path for humanity, where a lot of our hearts are so closed that they don't even often vibrate at the frequency of love, which is ironic given that the hearts are supposed to be this receptacle, this vessel for love. I would say suffering is a great, great teacher, because it is in part due to suffering on the collective and individual level that we will get to evolve into the beings whose hearts are vibrating at the frequency of love, finally. Please let me know in the comments how this is landing for you guys. I know I went way esoteric here, but I also wanted to make it land home for you. So let me know how you personally feel about suffering. And know that everything that comes into your life, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, right? And if you only let yourself surrender to the moment, so much clarity comes through as a result. Clarity and light and a path forward will always unfold. So trust your journey with love. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, darlings.